For over 20 years, our organization, Tree for Hope, has had a very close relationship with Hogar Miguel Magogne Orphanage, just a few miles as the crow flies from the center of Guatemala City, Guatemala. The orphanage is located on the side of a mountain and is home to about 100 kids, depending on the time of year, and also serves as a community center of sorts for children from the neighboring village of El Aguacate. And for how close it is to the very urban and also relatively modern city center of Guatemala City, the village of Aguacate feels very isolated and very distant. From the orphanage, you hike up the side of a mountain about a quarter of a mile before turning onto the path to the village on the left. And you follow this winding path back down the mountain, bending and turning, past the weathered and worn gray cinder block public school building, past the Catholic Church, which is by far the nicest building in town, and past a number of small huts and shops along the way, all the while taking in the occasional magnificent view of Guatemala City sprawled out for miles below you, which ironically stands in stark dichotomy to the more than humble living conditions you're otherwise walking by. Undoubtedly, along your journey, a few street dogs will cross your path, and after a few more twists and turns, you'll find yourself in Aguacate proper. And perhaps the first thing you notice is that it's a town of mostly sheet metal houses. There really aren't glass windows anywhere, and the majority of homes and tiendas have dirt floors, which, along with being in proximity to two active volcanoes, contributes to a level of dust that just seems to be everywhere all the time. Most of the homes are dark, since the majority of people don't have electricity. And for those that do, the service is spotty and unreliable. It's definitely not a town that we would consider pretty by traditional standards, and offers little opportunity for those born there and those currently living there. Most families have many children, and men typically work day labor to try to make ends meet, though they struggle to find consistent work. There are a few tiny shops selling pre-packaged basic necessities, but fresh foods are hard to come by. And driven by the struggles of poverty, alcohol consumption and alcoholism are far too common with many men in the community. While alcohol may temporarily numb the hardships of life that many of these men are struggling with, unfortunately it only serves to propagate the level of poverty experienced by their families. To the outsider, especially the more affluent outsider, like perhaps one from the United States, it's easy to wonder if a place like Aguacate has any value whatsoever. And a place that could be aptly described as the wilderness by biblical standards, it is easy to wonder, can anything good come from a place like Aguacate? Such is the question in today's gospel. We join Jesus at the beginning of his ministry according to St. John. He goes out into the community and begins recruiting his first disciples. And prior to our reading today, Jesus invited Andrew and Peter to follow him. And when they asked him, "Where are you staying? What are we going to be doing?" he simply invited them to come and see. Today, Jesus continues to reach out to disciples, first by finding Philip and extending to him the same invitation he gave to Andrew and Peter, "Follow me." And Philip immediately gets up following Jesus with little hesitation or concern of where they're going or what they might be doing. Philip then finds Nathanael and tells him that they have found the one that Moses and the prophets and the law have all spoken of, Jesus, son of Joseph from Nazareth. To which Nathanael replies, "What good can come from Nazareth?" And Philip responds as Jesus did to Andrew and Peter, inviting him to come and see. Now, John doesn't tell us why Nathanael carries such heavy prejudice toward Nazareth and its people. And in fact, John frequently leaves us space to fill in the blanks for ourselves, to ponder about the connections between people and events that happen in his gospel and the transitions that take place between them. However, whatever Nathanael's reasons for disliking Nazareans may be, I find these opinions to be completely believable and also unsurprising, because throughout human history, we've always been extremely adept at casting judgments toward those different than us and the things which we do not yet understand. In those moments, we see things as humans are prone to see them, through the lens of our own tribes and cultures and experiences. And while this skill was very useful for early human evolution, helping us to form close-knit groups and quickly identify threats, greatly increasing our ability to survive as a species in small communities, it unfortunately prevents us from seeing the world as God sees it. In this regard, Jesus' invitation to Andrew and Peter and Philip's invitation to Nathanael to come and see are incredibly radical. Come and see here is not an invitation to take a passing glance at something or to gawk at an attraction or spectacle. It is instead an invitation to begin seeing from a different point of view. Not a human point of view, but God's point of view. In the same way, when we look upon a place like the village of Aguacate with human eyes, we tend to see the negatives first above all else. We see the poverty, we see the dirt, we see the imperfections, and we see these living conditions of countless people around the world represented in the microcosm of this one small Central American town. And these snap judgments cloud our vision to what's actually there. If we stay in that space of blindness, we miss the beauty of God's kingdom all around us. If, for example, you stayed a while and continued to follow that road into Aguacate and around to the left, you would soon find Erica's house. Now, Erica is just 13 years old, but she is building God's kingdom every single day of her life. Last year, she graduated from our school for girls, Hope Academy, and became the first person in the entire history of her family to complete the 6th grade. She runs a small business selling snacks out of her house to help support her family, and is currently attending a private school on scholarship to continue her education. She dreams of becoming a chef, not only to help connect people with one another through food, but to provide a better life for her family. She's a natural leader, and while a bit mischievous at times, is fiercely loyal to her friends and family, and wants to see her community become a better place. Just across the street from Erica's house is her cousin Delmy, who also graduated 6th grade last year with Erica and is continuing her school studies with the hope of one day becoming a veterinarian. She and her mom share one of the larger houses in the village, although most of it is open air, and it also has an incredible view of Guatemala City from the mountaintop where they live. And a few years back, due to heavy rains and a mudslide, a part of their house literally fell off the side of the mountain. Fortunately, no one was hurt, and through the strength of their community, they were able to rebuild and carry on. Delmy helps her mother cultivate succulents, which they sell to provide at least a little bit of income in between the one-off jobs her mom finds here and there. And just down the block a little farther is Vanessa, also a member of our graduating 6th grade class from last year. She's taken a real leadership role in her family, even as she too continues her studies, dreaming of being a musician one day. Her house is small. It only has 2 beds that are shared between herself, her parents, and her many siblings. Her parents are HIV positive and have been for a long time, and in bouts of sickness, Vanessa frequently steps up to care not just for her siblings, but for her parents as well. Despite the challenges that surround her life, she seems to always find hope moving into the future. The hopes and dreams of these kids and countless others living in Aguacate reveals to those with eyes to see God's kingdom working to break into the world. For nearly 20 years, we've been bringing volunteer groups to Guatemala to engage in our work and build relationships with the people we are privileged to walk alongside. In these moments, as people heed the call to come and see, we witness a lot of powerful transformations take place. They join us at our school, at Hogar Miguel Orphanage, in Aguacate, and come to see through their own lived experience these communities for who they really are. Countless images of God shining back at them from each and every person that they encounter. Because of these experiences, they go home forever changed. For many of us, we can't let go of our preconceived notions until we experience something different, and often these experiences help awaken us to God's reality. Similarly, Nathaniel can't let go of his prejudice against Nazareth until he experiences something different. When Philip brings him to Jesus, his haughtiness persists as he asks Jesus, "How did you get to know me?" And Jesus makes a comment to him about seeing him under a fig tree before Philip called him. Like earlier, where we're not informed of Nathanael's history with Nazareth, we're also not privy to the details of his experience with a fig tree. However, whatever this moment was to him, whether it happened far in the past or relatively recently, Jesus speaking this to him opens his eyes, and he immediately realizes that there's something special about Jesus. He has an epiphany of sorts about who Jesus is and can finally see him with God's eyes rather than human eyes. Yet as monumental as this understanding is for Nathanael, Jesus still pushes him beyond this momentary revelation, saying, "Do you just believe because of what I told you about seeing you under a fig tree? Truly, you will see heaven open up and angels ascending and descending upon the Son of Man." Throughout John's gospel, Jesus will constantly point us back to this theme of seeing, inviting us to come and see, challenging us to see what lies beyond or beneath the surface, pointing us toward seeing the image of God in all things and the kingdom of heaven constantly breaking into the world. And he does an excellent job of teaching us how to do this, right up to his death and resurrection, where he will challenge us to see that not even the violence and hate festering in the hearts of many is strong enough to snuff out the love of God. Because no matter how many times we try to kill God's love, no matter how many times darkness tries to blot it out, it always comes back, always sees us for who we are as beloved children of God, and always loves us unconditionally. So, what good can come from a place like Aguacate? Well, for those bold enough to come and see, or for those whose eyes are already able to look upon the world with God's eyes, then from Aguacate comes the image of God in countless beautiful forms, working through hope to make the kingdom of heaven real, right here and right now. Amen, and thanks be to God.